Welcome everyone to our EVEX webinar today. I'm excited to have Laura Tipper, who's going to be presenting on procurement, utilizing purchase requisitions and procurement categories in AX 2012. Before we get too deep into it, I just wanted to give a little bit of information around EVEX and who we are and some of the services we provide. So EVEX is a global company. Right now we're sitting in our Atlanta office in our North American headquarters. The global EVEX is headquartered out of the UK. We have 3 offices in the UK, Chesterfield, Swindon, and London. We also have an offshore development team based in Jordan, and we have an AX practice in Saudi. Worldwide, we're about 280 staff. We have over 300 installations worldwide for AX, CRM, Navision. We were founded in '99 globally. The US practice was founded back in 2006, so we've been around for a very long time. We are a member of the AX Pact, so if you too are a global implementation and you need support in countries we don't have offices in, we use the AX Pact to do those implementations. We're privately owned and managed. We're 100% Microsoft focused, so everything we do is around the Microsoft stack. Again, around their Dynamics products as well as their business intelligence products and the cloud offering. We're about 44 million in annual revenues, and we're constantly profitable. In terms of what we deliver, we focus, again, completely on the Microsoft stack, on global solutions, as well as small to medium-sized businesses in the countries that we support. We focus on CRM, ERP, and BI. We were founded on Dynamics AX, so that's our bread and butter. Recently, we have acquired a Navision practice. CRM is something that's dear to our hearts as well. And of course, the data analytics and business intelligence that sits underneath everything. On top of that, we've focused heavily in the past year on Azure and the private and public cloud, and we have managed services that sit on top of that. If you look to the left, we're very highly regarded with Microsoft. We're a gold partner. We've also been reseller of the year for the past 5 to 6 years. The one year we didn't win was because we were global partner of the year, and we won a higher award. In 2015, we were awarded Inner Circle with Microsoft, which is given to only the top 1% of partners, so it just speaks to our reputation. And then, of course, we're certified in discrete manufacturing and professional services with AMR from an industry certification point of view. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Laura. For the sake of having a lot of people on this webinar and keeping questions and people on mute, we're going to use the actual questions feature of GoToWebinar. So if you have a question, please post it and we'll look at it at the appropriate time and answer it. Thank you for joining us again, and I'm going to hand it over to Laura.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and we'll get started here. What I'm going to do is I'll go through this agenda, and then I'll go through some slides, and then a lot of what we're going to do today is just hands-on demo work in the actual AX environment. So I'm going to go. This is kind of divided into 2 parts. One about the procurement categories, the features, setting them up, and then I'll demonstrate how they get set up, and then it's about how those categories then are used within a purchase requisition, and in order to give more control and flexibility, depending upon how you want to run your purchase requisitioning. So let's see here. Procurement categories. If you're not familiar with procurement categories, they're a very good way to purchase things that you don't necessarily want to go into stock, so anything that you don't necessarily need in your bill of materials, don't need the traceability for within your production cycle. A lot of people use them for consumables, training, health and safety, services, and things like that, that you don't have to have an actual item number within your system and manage those as products within your system. The procurement categories, the hierarchical based structure, and it can be either created manually or imported from one of the many industry standard lists. I've just got a few listed here. You can also do a combined hierarchy where you use part of a standard list and create some of it manually. It's very flexible. And then basically once you have a procurement category, that category is then called upon in a bunch of the purchasing areas in order to make use of the categories and control or provide additional flexibility. And we'll see that in this next chart here. Okay. So what we have, so once you have a category set up, if I kind of start at the sort of the 2 o'clock position of the purchasing policy rules, having categories set up, then you can go into what are called the purchasing policy rules and allow you to do a whole bunch of different things by category group. So you can control what users can purchase into different categories. You can control the invoice matching policy and vendor selection by that category. Carrying on around clockwise, you can set up for each of your categories, you can set up different products, you can define attributes for that category, like brand, weight, and warranty. Those attributes then are really useful if someone's working within the enterprise portal, and it allows them to search and find products by those categories, by those attributes. You can also, in your ledger posting profile, if you want different different postings based upon what category you're buying into, you can control those postings by category and also report against those costs by category. And similar to the way we set up products and product attributes by category, you can also define vendors for each categories. Those vendors are then viewable by category in either enterprise portal or within the client, and you can assign an approved or preferred status to those vendors once you've assigned them to a category. And then again, back within the purchasing policy rules, so this all kind of interrelates together. You can also say that for a given category, a given vendor type, it must be approved or approved preferred in order for a user to select it. So these kind of all work together to control or provide additional features. And then at the top, what we have is the procurement catalog that can be really useful, especially if you have users who need to create purchase requisitions and don't normally have access to the AX client. You can provide them with a self-service license, which is the most inexpensive license that Microsoft sells, and they can get in through the enterprise portal and use the procurement catalog to order products, effectively put them in their shopping basket like you would ordering from Amazon or something. And by putting them in the shopping basket, they effectively create a purchase requisition. So if you've got a category hierarchy set up, that can translate directly into a catalog and can be given additional attributes and characteristics for people to use via the enterprise portal. All right, so to set up a procurement category, I've kind of defined this left to right. You see the number of these items are optional, and if you don't do some of the optional ones, the next ones are not dependent on them. So you can kind of pick and choose after you do the first couple of mandatory ones. You can choose which of the optional ones you set up. So first, we're going to create the hierarchy and assign it to be a procurement hierarchy type. We configure that with its levels and its different names. You can create the catalog if you wish to use a catalog, set up an organizational hierarchy if you want to use that within the purchasing policies, set up the policies, and then set up posting profiles. So I'll take you through all of these actually within the system. What I've got here is I've got a number of slides here that actually describe what all the different steps I want to perform are, but I'm not really going to go through these in detail because I'm just going to do it in the system. So slides can be made available if you desire to have the more detailed instructions on what I've done, but I'm going to just go through and do it. Oops. Let me just do it within the system here. So here I've got my AX 2012 environment. So the first thing I need to do is to set up a procurement category. Procurement category. And actually, when you first create them, categories are all created in product information management over here. It's set up categories. you create a category hierarchy. There are a number of different types of category hierarchies that are available within AX. You create the actual hierarchy here, and then you assign it to which type it would be, like the procurement category. There's also retail and sales categories. So, I mean, it's very simple here to create one test, test hierarchy. Okay. And then I can just go ahead and create my new nodes like this and just build out my hierarchy at whatever level I want. It's similar to lots of other areas within the system, kind of wherever you select here and do new category node, that defines where in the hierarchy level it goes. So I can make a whole hierarchy here of categories. I might want to call this office supplies, and then of course you could have various kinds of paper and various kinds of pens. Okay, so I mean, so that's basically how you create it. You could also import it here if you had some sort of you wanted to import it from a file, maybe using for one of those industry standards like I mentioned earlier. That's where you would pull it in. And then having pulled it in, of course, you could modify it. So I'm going to just leave this one aside for a second and show you a bit more about what's contained within the hierarchy. I'll do that in one that I've created previously. So I'm going to close this out. And I have created this procurement category earlier. So you can see here I've got a hierarchical structure. If I press my little pluses, I get, the whole thing can open up. So you've got, a description and a friendly name. Some of these fields are just used for displaying an enterprise portal. If you wanted to provide, more user-friendly names than what you might have in the system here. For each category, you have what's called category attributes, and that's basically like you might want to define who the owner is. That's what I often see this used in, who owns this particular category and is responsible for maintaining it. You can define industry type of commodity codes. If your company works with commodity codes, you can define those codes that are applicable to that category for various standards of commodity codes. If you want to, you can also put in here. I was wondering if I think I might have one here. You can define a category page, for example, warnings. If there was something that you wanted to appear when somebody was looking at this category in Enterprise Portal, you could say something like, like for my car category, you must have a valid driver's license to order in, this category, or something like that, or ensure that the vendor provides, necessary documentation for, some sort of ISO standard or certification or a manual or whatever. So whatever I've written here is now going to show up in Enterprise Portal if I'm looking at this category. That's what the category page does for you. And then project categories. If you're going to be purchasing, if your company works and does purchasing within projects, all of the categories should be given a project category in order to support the whole ledger postings within projects. Okay. So having set up my my category, then I associate it with a specific type. You can see here that my procurement office supplies category is associated with the procurement category hierarchy type. So you can only have one procurement category hierarchy per legal entity, and so if I were to try and change that, it would give me an error. So I've given that this is the one procurement category. You can see here I've got 3 retail ones, but procurement's limited to just one hierarchy per entity. So having given this a type, created this and given this a type of procurement category, things I do to it from now, the more configuration of it now is done within procurement and sourcing. So I'm going to leave product information management and go into procurement and sourcing to do a little bit more work on my procurement category. All right, so open that up and see. It's the same sort of thing here. Here's my whole hierarchy. A lot of the information that I put in product information management is here, but not editable. If I need to edit it, I'd press the edit at the top, and it would just basically take me back to the same form I was in via the product information management area. So I'll close up some of this. This is where I can add my actual products into the categories. So under my computers category, I have some computers and some bike gear. Sort of a hodgepodge there. So it's just simple. Select the different products you might want to add. Put them into your list. Say okay, and they get added to your list of products that are in the system here. Okay, against that. So if I'm searching within the computers category, looking at the computers category, either in the client or enterprise portal, these are all the different things I have available to purchase. Okay. For these products, I can also define attributes. This is what I mentioned before. You can define, I was trying to see if I've got one here. You can define an attribute like, there are a number of attributes already set up within this system. So you can define brand, Bluetooth, various characteristics that then people can, so let's say display size, okay, and then you can define whether or not that attribute is required and searchable and sortable. If you have a product attribute at this parent level, you can also define that the children subcategories can inherit those attributes from the parent. So if I were to set up something at office machine level like brand, my category down here could have a category of display resolution, but I could also inherit maybe brand from office machines. And those would show up here in the inherited attributes list as well. Vendors, I can assign vendors here to the category, and again, so when I'm looking at these within the client and the portal, looking to buy something in the computers category, I can find the vendors that I want to buy those from. So here we have a vendor set up for highlighters, Fabricam, and having put the vendor in, this is what I mentioned on an earlier stage, I can define whether they are approved or a preferred vendor here. Preferred being, of course, one step more preferred than approved. Vendor evaluation criteria groups, you can go ahead and add criteria here that then people can enter information about against which you would evaluate a vendor. So that could be, you can set up those criteria to be based on, typically people would base them on quality, timeliness, and things like that, so that when people are looking for those vendors in the enterprise portal, again, you get stars and various other indicators of their, of their quality based upon the vendor criteria. You can set up a questionnaire. You can set up a questionnaire such that if somebody is going to purchase from that vendor, they must first fill out a questionnaire. Okay, so here's one I've got, and you can see I can view the questions. The questionnaires can be quite elaborate and are a whole topic in and of themselves. But if you want somebody to go ahead and fill out a questionnaire as part of making that purchase, you can fill that in there. Item sales tax groups, if the items within this category have some sort of default item sales tax group, you can set that up there. These are the category attribute values. Now earlier I talked about maybe setting an owner. We had a category attributes were set up in the product information management area when we first defined the hierarchy. So if you said, for example, you'd set up a category attribute for owner, this is where you would go ahead and say that the owner is, Fred or something. All right, so it's within this area that you actually give the values for the category attribute you define in product information management. And here's the the category page, having set it up previously, like I set up the warnings one, so now I can select the warnings one, and you can see this is what will display. So you set it up in the product information management, and go ahead and select it here. And then here, these are the commodity codes. If I'd set up commodity codes for any of these categories, you'd see them here. They're not editable in this form, but they do display. So they're set up within product information management in that part of the hierarchy, but they're viewable here in case you want to view them. All right, so that's the basic setting up your procurement hierarchy. Let's look at our slide and see where we're getting on here. So we set up our, we created the structure in product information management, define category attributes and these sorts of things optionally, assign a project category if you're using projects, associate it to the procurement category type. Then, these are all the things that then are set up within the procurement category and procurement and sourcing. All these different things allow you to, can be set up or not as you see fit for your system. Okay, and then the next thing we can do if we want is to set up a procurement catalog. So I'm going to close out of our hierarchy here. If you want to use catalogs, like I said, it can be really useful if you have lots of users who only have access to the employee services. You go in here into procurement sourcing and you can define a procurement catalog. Now you can have multiple procurement catalogs in the system. You're not just limited to one. So you can copy a catalog, you can make a new catalog, and they can be set up for different groups of users if you like. So here, you'll see this looks almost exactly like our hierarchy. It is our hierarchy, but having brought in, this is based on the procurement hierarchy we just set up, but you can also, if you wanted to, go ahead and put things in the catalog here that maybe don't exist in your procurement hierarchy. So you have additional flexibility here to add additional categories or to disable them. You can see some of these here with the down arrow have been disabled, so they're not actually visible within the enterprise portal. You might do that when you're just setting up a new category perhaps and you're not ready to publish it yet. You can go ahead and disable it, make sure it's all set up properly, and enable it when you're ready for it to go live. All right, so when I've got some things here, let's find our category here. Here's our computers. These are all the things we added. You can see I've got, they tell us here that they were added via the procurement catalog, the category that we did previously. But I could also add a product here. I could manually add this product in here, and it will show me that it's been manually added and it hasn't come from the procurement category. So you have that level of control if you want. If you want to add some things in just into the catalog, then you can put them in here on your own. If I do details on any of these, that just brings up the release product form, the details of the actual product in the system. Again, similarly, any vendors that were assigned to these categories, you can see here, see the details, and define whether or not they are displayed. If you are linking to an external vendor catalog, you can go ahead and set up those links here and link directly into their catalog system, and so people can get access to that, again, in EP or in the client. And if you'd set up some attributes like brand, for example, things like that. Let me see if I do have them. Then that is where you would define the different. So for example, if you had set up a hard disk drive capacity, for example, I could say that my filter range is a disk drive capacity of 1 to 2 terabytes or 2 to 4 terabytes. So I can add those attributes that I'd put in via the procurement category, define the ranges, and then people can use those ranges to search on these attributes by those ranges, filter in the enterprise portal against those ranges, which can be really useful, particularly if you have a long list of products. And then we have price range, which doesn't require any setup. The filter range was based on attributes we specifically set up, but the price range one is set up, it's just default here, and I didn't have to do anything to set that up. So I could set up a price range here of 0 to 100, and I could add another one for, 100 to 200. And so again, people can then filter the products in Enterprise Portal based upon these price ranges. Change the currency if I wanted to as well. Couple other things, default browsing page. So when you're in Enterprise Portal and you're looking at this catalog, if you look at the computers category, what this says is that when you open the computers category in Enterprise Portal, it's the product page. There are 3 pages available for any category. There's product, vendor, and external catalog. So so this basically defines which is the default. And there are just tabs at the top, so you can easily select another one, but this defines for that category which of the browsing pages is shown by default. In many cases, for office supplies, for example, people don't have actual products in their system because they're just ordered sort of generically, so the default browsing page is almost always set up to be vendor. So you go to a vendor page, select the vendor you want to buy stuff from, start ordering your paper, pens, scissors, whatever you want to buy. You can see up here I've got a default update type 2. That is defined as, we've got static and dynamic, so that defines whether or not this category is updated statically or dynamically with any changes to the information in that category. These are set up static, so that what that means is that having made any changes, I need to press publish and republish the catalog. So do you want to release it? Say yes, and it goes ahead and sticks it out there on Enterprise Portal. Okay, if you have it dynamic, you don't have to do the publish the catalog, it just is published automatically. Okay, if we look here, this is what we've done here. Create presentation text, product relationships, enable, disable different areas, products and vendors, links to vendor catalogs, provide our filters, activate and publish category. And then if you do have products linked to the hierarchy, you also need to go into procurement sourcing here, and down here under periodic, you do the synchronized product search data here, right? So that just shoves everything out there, synchronizes all the data with your released product information and make sure everything's up to date. All right, moving on from there. If you want to, you can create an organizational hierarchy. I'm not going to do that because we just don't have quite enough time, but what this allows you to do is if you wanted to create, for example, a purchasing hierarchy that reflects how you're going to control purchasing in the company. So maybe you have groups, a group of project managers, a group of people who can only order, computer supplies, the IT group, and maybe a couple of managers. You can organize it by how people are allowed to purchase, and then you can use those within the purchasing policies, and I'll show you a little bit of that in a second, to control who can purchase for which categories. Okay, and it says here you can, if you have an org chart organizational hierarchy set up, you can use that, for your procurement internal control, but so that organization chart can serve 2 purposes, both as an org chart and as a procurement control organizational hierarchy. So the next thing really to do, having set up our procurement categories, to configure our policies. So I'll do that here. So that again is done in procurement sourcing under policies. So I've got an active procurement policy here that I set up. I could retire that and start afresh, but I'm going to go ahead and open that up. So what you can see here is that for my Contoso entertainment system here, that is the selected organizational node. So all the policies down below here apply to anybody who's working in the Contoso Entertainment USA organizational node. Now, if I had set up an organizational hierarchy of that defines like the finance group and the different groups in my company, I could have selected that here and maybe put like the finance group out here and the IT group, and then defined what they could purchase. Then I would set up another policy that defined what project managers could buy and set up the rules for them. So in the same way, this hierarchy just lists a number of different companies that the policies apply to. You can do the same sort of thing for an organizational hierarchy, and that can provide a lot of control if you want it. Okay, so what we have here, first thing is our catalog policy rule, and all that does is define what our catalog is. If you're using a procurement catalog, you just select your catalog. We only have the one, so that's the one we have as active. And you can see we had one before. It expired in 2012, and this one's just valid forever. You can retire any of the policies and create a new policy if you like. This is the one that kind of has the meat of what people can do and controls people's purchasing. If I open one of these, so again, I get another view of my hierarchy, and this says for the Contoso USA, remember we're looking at, this is what we're defining for that whole Contoso USA organization that we had selected earlier. What we're saying here is that all of those people in Contoso USA can purchase into these categories. Okay, so if I selected the cars, see it's already selected here, but I could take all of these out. So right now nobody can purchase anything, and I said I wanted to select cars, so everybody can now purchase into cars, vehicles, and and it takes that all the way up to the top and includes those so that they can get those levels. Or I could say, for example, I want everybody to be able to purchase office and desk accessories, including all the subcategories, and I'm going to add that. So this is where you include or not include those different categories that you want the people in your selected organization to be able to purchase. I'm going to go ahead and select a lot of this so that make sure we have things to look at in the purchasing. So that controls, so that says that people can see and purchase from those categories. All right. If they are excluded from purchasing in those categories, they'll still see the category header in the enterprise portal, but the products and vendor tabs, browsing pages would be blank. This is one of the policies that you can see. It's just made me a new one here today on the 10th of November. It auto-retired the old one. So some policies you have to actually retire and create a new one. Some of them auto-update themselves, and this is one of those that auto-updated itself. Then I have a category policy rule here, and this is where I can define on a per category basis whether the user can select any vendor. So when purchasing from standard envelopes, for example, if you're purchasing something for that category, the user in the purchase rec, for example, can only select vendors that are identified for that category as preferred or approved. So my options here, you can say only those that are preferred or approved, do not allow vendor selections, and therefore, at the purchase rec level, the users can't specify any vendors, and that will be done at the purchase order stage. Perhaps you want your procurement department to go ahead and get quotes before a vendor is selected, or you allow the user to select any vendor for that category. So those are your options there. If questionnaires have been set up, you can define here whether they're displayed for those categories, and then whether you have a two-way or three-way matching policy or a specific company policy for that category. We've got some receiving and deduction requirements that have to do here with whether or not there's checks made on the quantities when you go ahead and make those transactions in the system, and whether the expenses are accrued on receipt or on invoicing. So again, controls at a per category level. Then the only other thing we've got in terms of the, let me just double check here. Yeah, so those are the only three that really apply to categories themselves. There's loads of other of those purchasing policies that you can set up to control other aspects of your purchasing process. But in terms of the category hierarchy, it's those three at the top that we'd want to do. So I'll go ahead and close that. I know we're going quite quickly here, but there's lots to cover. So that, in effect, is having set up the category. If you do want to do posting profile by category, a lot of companies do that as well. You go down here into your setup, posting. And you can, for example, for purchase orders, you can set them up here. They're set up now for group, but you could set something up for category, and I could say that for a specific category, commissioning and rebates, that the specific account I'm going to have those posted to is whichever one is applicable here. So for product receipt, all the different types of purchasing that you might want to do, all the different transactions within purchasing, I could define where those costs are posted for that particular category. So that gives you a lot of ability to control where those costs go. All right, so that's basically that's the setting up the procurement catalog and categories for purchasing. And now, what about purchase requisitions themselves? We'll come back to you'll see how those categories are used in just a minute here. If you're not already using purchase requisitions, they can be a really useful capability to implement. You can create them within the AX client, or like I said a number of times, in the employee services, and can be created within or outside of a project. Allows you to purchase things that you don't want to go into stock, and they all have a workflow. All purchase requisitions must go through a workflow before they can be turned into a purchase order. That workflow, of course, can be as simple or as complex as you want, and it can just be an auto approve if you desire, but they do have to go through the workflow. There is the ability in the setup to also allow people to request purchases for other people. So if you have an admin person, for example, who's ordering for a group or a number of groups, they can be set up to request on their behalf. And then again, purchase requisitions, in those purchasing policies we're looking at have a number of other policies specific to them that control what fields are required on a purchase rec, and allow you to control more details about the purchase requisition. So setting up a purchase rec, there's three little blobs I've identified here. These are not sequential, so I've not drawn an arrow through them. You can do these in three really in any sort of order you want to. Purchasing control, policy, permissions, like I said, if you want to have somebody else raise them on somebody else's behalf, and then the workflows. All right, so the policy, the purchase control policy, we'll go back into our policies that we were in a minute ago. Right, so purchase requisition control rule, okay. So what we've got here, this is, this top part defines what fields must be filled in prior to submitting it to the workflow. So if you want, for example, you're going to require your user to enter a unit price, you set that to required. Perhaps you are going to require them under certain conditions to enter a project ID. So I can make that conditional, and I can add my condition here, where the counting date is, whatever, or you've got the whole access to all the purchase requisition lines against which you can set your criteria. So you can base it on maybe a financial dimension, or on some others, maybe the buying legal entity, something like that. So you've got those three options: required, not required, and conditional for each of those fields. And then if you try and submit your purchase requisition and the criteria have not been met, it'll raise an error message telling you that you must fill in those fields accordingly. Within a released product in the system, so if you're buying an item, this only applies if you're actually buying items that have item numbers in your system. You can set up the default order settings for your items to have multiple orders. Maybe you can only order something in quantities of 24. They come in boxes of 24, and that's all you buy them in. So therefore, your minimum order quantity is 24. Your multiple is 24, and potentially maybe, you have some sort of maximum quantity as well that's a multiple of 24. If you want to enforce those quantity restrictions at the purchase requisition stage, then you can tick these boxes and it'll make that assessment against the products you're ordering. There are 2 dates when you're creating a purchase requisition that normally come up on the creation form. One's the requested date, that's the date you want the you want the goods delivered, and there's the accounting date, which is the date that it gets recorded from a financial perspective. If you want it just to be the same thing, then you can tick this, and then the users only have to enter 1 date. In most cases, people find it quite confusing to have 2 dates, and so a lot of companies set this tick box and allow it to be the same date. Normally, when you create a purchase requisition, the delivery address is, the address of the legal entity into which you're buying the goods. But if you want to allow the user to specify a different delivery address, maybe you have multiple sites or you want to specify it to go to maybe a customer address, you can tick this so that the user has that ability to enter a new delivery address at the purchase requisition stage. Okay. So that's the thing about the PR control purchasing policy. That's the main one there for purchase requisitions. Permissions, if you want to allow different people to create purchase requisitions on others' behalf, we've got our purchase requisition permissions here again under the policies. So you've got 2 views here. You can do it by preparer. Preparer is the one who is writing and submitting the purchase requisition. Requester is the one who wants the goods. So you select some of these. I think so. Luke Lenhart, if you want Luke to be able to prepare a purchase rec and have it be a different person be the on the requester, you can just add those people here. So now Luke can raise a purchase requisition, and in the individual lines, although Luke will be the preparer at the purchase requisition level, in the individual lines you can specify who the requester is. So you can raise 1 purchase requisition. Luke could raise 1 purchase requisition with lines that contain himself, Benjamin, and Teresa. So he's now got that capability. Right. Oh, that's a good point. Missed that. So let me go back here really quick. Having done that, let's see, Luke. Teresa, so select Teresa. What I can do here is I can, sorry, better question. You can also specify that Luke can purchase into multiple legal entities. So that can be handy if people are cross legal entities. And I can also say under the authorization. So having said that I could purchase for Ms. Teresa, I can either request only on Teresa's behalf, but I can also request for anybody within her reporting chain. So if Teresa's a manager, for example, and I want to be able to raise purchase requisitions for anybody that reports to Teresa, I'd select reporting there, and I can do that for her whole organization. Okay. Next is the purchase requisition workflows. I'm not going to go too much into this because, as you're probably aware, workflows are a whole topic in and of themselves. Like I said, you have to have a purchase requisition review workflow. You can do purchase requisition approvals at the line level, so that based on the criteria and the different lines, you can then send the approval out to different people. So certain lines go to certain people, and other lines go to other people. What I've got here under the purchase requisition review is I've got a couple of different. Sorry about that. We've got a couple of different workflows set up, and then what's nice about the workflows is you can set up a number of different versions. You can be testing a version and have a different version be active, and then when you're ready for it, you can make the one that you've set up and have tested the active version. You've got the ability in the workflow to go ahead and set up a group of people called Purchase Requisition Expenditure Reviewers. This can be really helpful if you're doing purchasing within projects. This Purchase Requisition Expenditure Reviewers is a group that you can set up can be set up to be like the project manager, controller, and sales manager that are defined for each project. And then you can direct the lines or the individual purchase requisition to the people who basically own the project against which the items are being purchased. This purchase requisition expenditure reviewers works outside of projects by specifying who's the owner of a specific financial dimension. So if your financial dimensions include, for example, line of business, and you have an owner of the line of business, then when a line of business is X, you can direct that purchase order or that purchase order line to the owner of that line of business. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and create some purchase requisitions and just see how some of that stuff all plays out. Okay, so I'm going to go to all purchase requisitions, and I'll do a new purchase requisition here. So in the name field, I advise most customers that this should be the sort of some descriptive name of the goods you're buying, as opposed to your name, because your name appears in the list already as preparer. These are the 2 dates I was talking about before. I want these goods. In 2 days' time. If I was going to purchase this against a product, I could select the legal entity and the project against which the purchase is going to be made. I'm going to do this one outside of a project though. All right, so business justification. A lot of companies use this to, so that you can communicate why you're making this purchase and justify your purchase. So you have a number of different user-definable categories here. Just say general and, training room needs equipment. Okay, so you can put whatever you want in there for the people who are going to be reviewing the purchase requisition and deciding whether or not to approve it. All right, so if I go here and I can add a line and just type stuff in here, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do the add items, because what you can see here in the add items is where I can, this is where my catalog comes into view that I was playing about with before. See, so I've got the different categories here that were made available. In some of the categories we disabled and other ones we didn't. So what I've got here are the things that were not disabled. Now, a lot of these I don't have specific item numbers for, because they're not the type of things you put item numbers in. So you're not seeing them there. But if I select computers, I've got a number of item numbers and I can then select from. So if I want to add these to my purchase rec, select the ones to add. Put them down in the select box there. Say OK. Maybe I won't select that one. And add. So the add items allows you to go through a list, select multiple things at once, and go ahead and whack them into your purchase requisition pretty quickly. Some of the things that we set up in the category hierarchies you can see here. So if there were any sort of guidelines, if we had those that warning page where I talked about before, where we'd set up a category page, that would show up here and the user could see that and make any notes about what they needed to know about that category. And then any specific vendors that were called out are visible in there. Right. So that's just me going ahead and putting in the line. As soon as I click away from the line, as long as I've filled in all the fields that were driven by my purchasing policy, my workflow line comes up and I can go ahead and submit that, that purchase requisition to workflow. Similarly, in Enterprise Portal, let's go over to the portal here real quick. I'm going to change over to, I'm going to make sure I'm in the employee services part. This is the employee services page where, like I said, if you were just had a self-service license, this is the view you would get of the world. And so you go to your order products page here. And you can see our hierarchies down here with the different categories that we have set up and selected and made available. If I select computers, remember our default browsing page for computers was products. So I'll see my 3 tabs at the top, and product will be the one that's visible by default. You see my cart at the top. I've got a cart that shows me I don't have anything in my cart at this current time. There we go. So the nice thing about this too, this catalog, is if you've got your product pictures set up within your released products, you get pictures of things. So this is a really nice user interface for people who need to be ordering things and are maybe familiar with the item numbers. So you can give them pictures, you can give them all this information. You can, if I select that, I'll get another page with even more information about the item. It's just taking a while to load. So see here, so you need to get, attribute details. These are the, if we had defined attributes for this category, this would be the details of the, like we talked about using hard drive capacity or something like that. You'd see the details in here, and any sort of order requirements about multiples, any trade agreements, related products. So you could set here, how you could configure your thing. If these were configurable items, you could configure them, and then you could just add this thing to your cart. So I can see at the top now I've got a cart. So you can just go through the shopping cart like people are used to, used to working on the internet, and make your purchases, basically creating your purchase rec that way. Here are the price ranges we had set up to filter, so I could filter on the $100 to $200 price range, assuming I have anything in there. I don't have anything in there. $100 to $100. And if we had those attributes set up, say a hard drive capacity of 1 to 2 terabytes, as we talked about, you could click on the 1 to 2 terabytes and then filter on that as well. So if that's all I wanted in my purchase rec, I just go to order products. Oops, sorry, client orders. My second. From the shopping cart, I'll be able to go ahead and see it's over here. Oh, there we go. Check out my shopping cart, and I'll submit this to a workflow in the same fashion I would have done in the client. And it's just a much more friendly interface for people. All right. So just press the order button. That allows you to review your order before you go ahead and order it. Let's go back and see where we are with our charts here. Submit to, so yep, fill in the information, order the products, populate the lines, fill in any fields required by the purchasing policies, reason, description, questionnaire, submit to the workflow for approval. All right, so see if that's come back. Right, so here again, this is some header information that that I would normally populate it in my purchase requisition header. All those same things we got when we were creating them in the client, and then you set those up and go ahead and submit this to workflow in there. So submit to workflow. Okay, so that's in a nutshell the whole end-to-end process there for configuring and submitting purchase requisitions. All right, so I know that was a whirlwind. I hope that was helpful to everybody. So our next steps here, if you're interested in any more information, we've got some number of links here for different resources you can go out and make use of. We have what's called a project audit if you want to have us come in and look at your current ongoing project and maybe make some recommendations and help with that project. We can do that. That's a service we provide. We have a proof of concept upgrade. If you're looking to upgrade from any of the previous products into 2012, we can perform a proof of concept and give you an outline of what's involved in the upgrade for your company. We also have a supply chain health check that that covers your supply chain end to end and can focus on any specific areas of concern that you might have. All of these different services, could be scalable to your business, and and can be done by a consultant remotely or on site and in a handful of days. So it's not a huge outlay. We have a number of upcoming webinars that you can find here under our events page. I hope you make use of that. I've got another one coming up on Friday on the work breakdown structure if you're interested. And if you have any questions, Charlotte, who was here at the beginning to introduce the session, I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Charlotte, before?
Nope, just wanted to thank everybody for coming and hope you enjoyed the webinar.
Thank you, and have a good afternoon.